This is the second episode of Trouble with Water by H.L. Gold. As we recall from our first episode, Greenberg had hoped to enjoy his only day to go fishing before his season as a concessionaire began. But instead, he began his day on the lake rehashing an argument he had had with his wife earlier that morning about his failure to provide their daughter with the necessary dowry. On top of that, instead of catching fish on his fishing line, he had reeled in a long, pointed, brimless green hat, which he soon discovered, to his great disbelief, belonged to one of the 2-foot-tall water gnomes, whose job it is to restock the waters with fish and to control the rainfall in the area where his concession is located. Greenberg doesn't believe the water gnome. He dons an unpleasant, superior attitude and indulges himself in insulting the gnome, even while the gnome maintains a very polite, civil attitude toward Greenberg. Greenberg curses the water gnome and his fish, wishing that they die a horrible, lingering death. The gnome, in turn, calmly tells Greenberg that sometimes it is necessary for them to discipline certain people, and says that since Greenberg hates water and those who live in it, water and those who live in it will keep away from him. Greenberg soon discovers, to his horror, that water will do whatever is necessary to avoid contact with him. A gentleman suitor comes to dinner to meet his daughter Rosie, but when water leaps away from Greenberg, soaking the suitor in his only suit, the evening turns into a fiasco. Episode 1 concludes with the suitor leaving angrily, and Greenberg's wife, Esther, stalking threateningly towards him. Trouble with Water by H.L. Gold.
Herman Greenberg stood on the boardwalk outside his concession and glared blearily at the peaceful, blue, highly unpleasant ocean. He wondered what would happen if he started at the edge of the water and strode out. He could possibly walk right to Europe on dry land. It was early, much too early for business, and he was tired. Neither he nor Esther had slept, and it was practically certain that the neighbors hadn't either. But above all, he was incredibly thirsty.
Well, this year I'll be wiped out. If I can't mix sodas, why should beer stay in a glass for me? I thought I could hire a boy for $10 a week to run the hot dog griddle. I could make sodas, and Esther could draw beer. All I can do is make hot dogs. Esther can still draw beer, but 20 or maybe 25 a week I got to pay a soda man. It won't even come out square. A fortune I'll lose.
The situation really was desperate. Concessions depend on too many factors to be anything but capriciously profitable. Gradually, the beach was filling with bathers. Greenberg writhed on his bench and envied them. And then he saw his first customers approach. His business experience was that morning customers buy only soft drinks. In a mad haste, he put up the shutters and fled to the hotel.
Esther, I got to tell you, I can't stand it.
Go back to the concession, you crazy fool. Ain't you done enough already?
You got to help me, Esther.
Why didn't you shave, you no good bum? Is that any way?
That's what I got to tell you. Yesterday I got into an argument with a water gnome.
A what?
A water gnome. A little man so high, with big ears that he swims with, and he makes it rain.
Herman, stop that nonsense. You're crazy.
I ain't crazy. Look, Esther, come with me into the kitchen.
Esther watched him try to fill a glass of water.
Don't you see? It won't go into the glass. It spills all over. It runs away from me.
What happened to you?
I insulted a water gnome. I shredded his stupid hat, and now I can't touch water. I can't drink it. I can't make sodas. On top of it all, I got such a thirst, it's killing me.
Herman, my poor Herman. What did we ever do to deserve such a curse?
What shall I do, Esther?
You got to go to a doctor. How long can you go without drinking? Without water, you'll die. Maybe sometimes I am a little hard on you, but you know I love you.
I know, Mama, but how can a doctor help me?
Am I a doctor that I should know? Go anyhow. What can you lose?
Oh, I need $90 for an electric razor.
So if you got to, you got to. Go, darling. I'll take care of the concession.
Greenberg no longer felt deserted and alone. He walked almost confidently to a doctor's office. He explained his symptoms. The doctor listened with professional sympathy until Greenberg reached his description of the water gnome. Then his eyes glittered and narrowed.
I know just the thing for you, Mr. Greenberg. Sit there until I come back.
Greenberg sat quietly. He even permitted himself a surge of hope. But it seemed only a moment later that he was vaguely conscious of a siren screaming toward him. And then he was overwhelmed by the doctor and two interns who pounced on him and tried to squeeze him into a bag.
What are you doing to me? Don't put that thing on me.
Easy now. Everything will be all right.
Oh, what's up?
It was on that humiliating scene that the policeman, required by law to accompany public ambulances, appeared.
Take it easy, Mr. Greenberg. They ain't gonna hurt you while I'm here. What's it all about?
Mike, they think I'm crazy.
Of course he's crazy. He came in here with a fantastic yarn about a water gnome putting a curse on him.
What kind of curse, Mr. Greenberg?
I got into an argument with the water gnome who makes it rain and takes care of the fish. I tore up his hat. Now he won't let water touch me. I can't drink or anything.
There you are. Absolutely insane.
Shut up. Did any of you scientists think of testing him? Here, Mr. Greenberg.
He poured the water into a paper cup and held it out. Greenberg moved to take it. When he took it in his hand, the water shot out into the air.
Crazy, is he? I guess you don't know these things like gnomes and elves. Come with me, Mr. Greenberg. Well, doctors can't help you. What do they know about the little folk? And I can't say I blame you for assassin the gnome. You ain't Irish, or you'd have spoke with more respect to him. Anyhow, you're thirsty. Can't you drink anything?
Oh, not a thing.
They entered the concession. Esther clutched her husband as soon as she saw him.
Well?
Nothing. He thought I was crazy.
Sure. Did you try beer, Mr. Greenberg? When I was a boy, my old mother told me about elves and gnomes and the rest of the little folk. She knew them all right. They don't touch alcohol. You know, try drawing a glass of beer.
Greenberg trudged behind the bar and held a glass under the spigot. The beer creamed into the glass and stayed there. Suddenly, his despondent face brightened. Greenberg threw back his head and furiously drank.
It stays in the glass. Mike, I'm saved. I can drink the beer. You got to drink with me.
Well,
By late afternoon, Esther had to close the concession and take her husband and Mike to the hotel. The following day, being Saturday, brought a flood of rain. Greenberg and Esther were back at the concession.
Oh, boy, have I got a hangover. I can't stand it. Beer for breakfast. Phooey.
It's better than nothing.
So help me, I don't know if it is. But darling, you ain't mad at me on account of Sammy, are you?
Pooh. Talk dowry and he'll come back quick.
That's what I thought. But what am I going to do about my curse?
let me get this umbrella out of my way. You know my mother, Miriam.
Mike told me about you and the gnome. Now I know the little folk well, and I don't hold you to blame for insulting him, seeing you never met a gnome before, but I suppose you want to get rid of your curse. Are you repentant?
Beer for breakfast? Can you ask?
Well, you just go to this lake and give the gnome proof.
What kind of proof?
Bring him sugar. The little folk love the stuff.
Did you hear that, Esther? I'll get a barrel.
They love sugar, but because it melts in water, they rarely get to eat it. You've got to figure out a way so it won't melt. Then the little gentleman will know you're repentant for real.
Aha! I knew there was a catch.
Greenberg's agitated mind attacked the problem from all sides.
The minute I saw your place, I knew Mike had told the truth. I never seen a sight like it in my life. Rain coming down like the flood everywhere else, but all around this place, in a big circle, it's dry as a bone.
Esther seemed strangely interested in the phenomenon. When Greenberg finally admitted defeat and came out of his reflective stupor, he was alone in the concession, with only a vague memory of Esther saying she would not be back for several hours.
Oh, what am I going to do? Sugar that won't melt. Particular they got to be yet. Ain't it good enough if I bring simple syrup? That's sweet. Monday, no matter what, I'll go to the lake. It don't pay to go tomorrow. I'll only catch a cold because it'll rain.
At last Esther returned, smiling in a strange way. She was extremely gentle, tender, and thoughtful, and for that he was appreciative. But he understood the reason for her happiness. She had spread the word that, while it rained in every other place all over town, their concession was miraculously dry. So, besides his headache, Greenberg had to work like 6 men, satisfying the crowd who mobbed the place to see the miracle and enjoy the dry warmth. Very early Monday morning, he was dressing quietly, not to disturb his wife. Esther, however, raised herself on her elbow and looked at him doubtfully.
Herman, do you really have to go?
What do you mean? Do I have to go?
Well, couldn't you wait until the end of the season, Herman, darling?
What kind of idea is that for my own wife to have? Beer I have to drink instead of water. How can I stand it? Do you think I like beer? I can't wash myself. Already people don't like to stand near me, and how will they act at the end of the season? I go around looking like a bum because my beard is too tough for an electric razor, and I'm all the time drunk. The first Greenberg to be a drunkard. I want to be respected.
I know, Herman, darling, but I thought for the sake of our Rosie, such a business we've never done like we did this weekend. If it rains every Saturday and Sunday, but not on our concession, we'll make a fortune.
Esther, doesn't my health mean anything?
Of course, darling. Only I thought maybe you could stand it for...
No. Already my friends avoid me. It isn't right that a respectable man like me should always be drunk and not take a bath. So we'll make less money. Money isn't everything.
And with great determination, he went to the lake to look for the gnome. But that evening, before going home, Mike walked out of his way to stop in at the concession.
What's the matter, Greenberg?
I went to the lake today. I walked all around it, hollering like mad. The gnome didn't stick his head out of the water once.
I know. They're busy all the time.
So what can I do? I can't write him a letter or send him a telegram. He ain't got a door to knock on or a bell for me to ring. How can I get him to come up and talk? Here, Mike, have a cigar. You've been a real good friend, but I guess we're licked.
Real hot today. A regular scorcher.
Yeah, Esther says business was pretty good if it keeps up.
Mike fumbled at the cigar cellophane wrapper.
They like this hell on cigars. Drives them like nobody's business. This one ain't though.
Anyhow, suppose I did talk to the gnome. What about the sugar? Yeah, cellophane keeps them
Holy
dry.
smoke.
Cellophane on sugar.
Yeah. I'll switch my date off with Joe and I'll go to the lake with you tomorrow. I'll call you for you early.
When Esther came to relieve him, Greenberg left her at the concession while he searched the village for cubes of sugar wrapped in cellophane. The next morning, Mike and Greenberg stopped at a cafeteria for breakfast.
What'll you have?
Beer.
You're kidding me. Want anything with it? Cereal, pie, toast?
Just beer. So help me, Mike. Another beer for breakfast will kill me.
I know how it is. How about a boat?
It won't stay in the water with me in it. And you can't row it.
Well, what do we do then?
Go through the woods along the shore and holler like hell. I'll go the opposite way. We'll pass each other and meet at the boathouse. If the gnome comes up, yell for me.
Okay. Hey, gnome.
Hey, gnome, come on up.
The hell with this. It ain't doing any good. Let's go back to the boathouse.
What'll we do? I can't give up. Here comes the boathouse owner.
Why don't you maniacs get away from here? What's the idea of hollering and scaring away the fish? You guys are sore.
We're not going to holler anymore. It's no use.
We want to rent a boat.
When they bought the beer and Mike on an impulse hired a boat, the owner cooled off with amazing rapidity and went off to unpack bait.
What did you get the boat for? I can't ride in it.
You're not going to. You're going to walk.
Around the lake again?
No. Look, Mr. Greenberg, maybe the gnome can't hear us through all that water. Gnomes ain't hard-hearted. If he heard us and thought you were sorry, he'd take his curse off you in a jiffy.
Maybe. So where do I come in?
The way I figure it, some way or other, you push water away, but the water pushes you away just as hard. Anyhow, I hope so. If it does, you can walk on the lake. Give me a hand with these rocks. Put them in on the bottom of the boat.
Greenberg helped Mike fill the boat until just the gunwales were above water. Then Mike got in and shoved off.
Great, now shut me off and come on, try to walk underwater.
Suppose I can't.
Nothing will happen to you. You can't get wet, so you won't drown.
The logic of Mike's statement reassured Greenberg. He stepped out boldly. He experienced a peculiar sense of accomplishment when the water hastily retreated under his feet into pressure bowls, and an unseen, powerful force buoyed him upright across the lake's surface.
Hey, it works. Now what?
We'll drop these rocks all over the lake. Make it damn noisy down there and upset the place. That'll get him up.
Here's one that'll wake him. I'll hit him right on the noodle with this one.
Less than half the rocks had been dropped when Greenberg halted. Mike had to admit that the gnome, propelling himself through the water with his ears, arms folded in a tremendous dignity, was a funny sight.
Must you drop rocks and disturb us at our work?
I'm sorry, Mr. Gnome. I couldn't get you to come up by yelling.
Oh, you are the mortal who was disciplined. Why did you return?
To tell you that I'm sorry, and I won't insult you again.
Have you proof of your sincerity?
Greenberg fished furiously in his pocket and brought out a handful of sugar wrapped in cellophane, which he tremblingly handed to the gnome.
Ah, wrapped in cellophane. Very clever indeed.
The little man unwrapped a sugar cube and popped it eagerly into his mouth.
Long time since I've had some.
A moment later, Greenberg spluttered and floundered under the surface. Even if Mike had not caught his jacket and helped him up, he could almost have enjoyed the sensation of being able to drown. The end. Trouble with Water by H.L. Gold.